Good afternoon, everybody. This is Darren Crawley, Partner Account Manager for Cloud for Partners at Ascari. I'd like to welcome you all to today's partner webinar, which, as some of you may be already aware, is a monthly event that we run in conjunction with our partner network to give valuable insight into some of the tools, software applications and add-ons that can be deployed in conjunction with SAP Business One to add even more value to the customer experience. I'd like to welcome my colleague Tyson McMurran, who will be presenting shortly the benefits of both Versago and Bizweaver. Just to give you a little bit of insight into Third Wave Business Systems, they're a US company based out of Wayne in New Jersey, and they've actually been in existence since 2006 as an SAP Gold Partner. So they're one of the most experienced SAP B1 Gold Partners in North America. And their focus is very much on strategic partnerships, as is Cloud for Partners and Ascari. And we feel that they bring a great deal of value to the Business One proposition, largely through their expertise and technical knowledge of how to enable automation and integration through the Business One platform. So it's with great pleasure I'm introducing Tyson in a few moments. Just to set the scene further, one thing I did want to do was just really give you some housekeeping rules. As ever, all delegates are on mute, but that doesn't mean you can't pitch questions. We have a Q&A session scheduled for the last 5 to 10 minutes of the webinar. The webinar itself is due to last for between 20 to 30 minutes, so it's fairly short and fast moving. But if you want to pitch any questions for the end, just simply type in the questions you'd like to put to Tyson, either via the chat box or through the questions feature, which is on the user interface for GoToWebinar. So just to go to the agenda for today. As you can see, it's a fairly packed agenda there. But like I say, we're going to give you a very high level and very punchy overview of the benefits of relaying to your customers how the Versago and Bizweaver products can really get more value for the customer when they deploy their Business One solution. So without further ado, I'm just about to hand over to Tyson.
Can you see that, Darren?
Can indeed. Please go ahead, Tyson.
Excellent. So Versago, as Darren mentioned, Third Wave has been consulting hundreds of small, mid-sized businesses over the years. And we found kind of some common areas that we can really help businesses with respect to interaction of information and removing islands of information and data redundancy and information that remains outside of SAP Business One and getting that information back into Business One. So I call these like dotted lines here the cow path, where we end up with all of these tangents that the processes take in order to get information through the business, whether it's interacting with somebody inside or outside of the business. So what Versago enables is any type of user to access the business information internally or externally, securely, and the ability to view or update Business One information or other information that's on other databases or API information using a web browser or mobile device. So this allows a user a simple interface to update information back to Business One. So that said, when we look at all of these things, we kind of found that there's 5 main reasons that people want to use a product like Versago. The first is, as I mentioned, the centralized information sharing. So just automating the information that customers or suppliers or internal people have, and bringing it all back to the players that need that information, and then updating SAP Business One or other databases or websites for that matter with that information. The second issue that you run into is the scale of that access. So obviously you don't want to have your suppliers logging into SAP Business One. Sometimes internal customer or internal employees on a shop floor that are only doing like a purchase requisition, you don't need them necessarily having a full SAP Business One license. So the argument's always, well, it's just easier for us to write it on paper. So that leads to the next one that we typically see, and that is you really need a simple user experience so that you don't have to spend a lot of time training and explaining why the users are doing things. So the ability to replicate, as I mentioned, that paper process on a mobile device and being able to replace that tangent of information with a streamlined experience. The fourth thing that we always kind of run into, and most of the people in this call today are SAP Business One resellers, is no business is the same. They all have different ways of, transacting, and they need that flexible configuration. They don't need custom coding. They don't need, custom development projects. They want to be able to have something that's scalable and unique to their business, but also, at an affordable standpoint. So this area, hopefully today I can show you a couple of areas how we help our customers do that. And then the last is, and this is, we're seeing more and more and more of this, which is integration, whether it's to Shopify or, some kind of website or EDI platforms or payment gateways, all different types of integration options, and I'll be showing some of the examples of that. So the overall objective of the Versago product is to allow users to review, enter, update, process, and gain insight. So just as this scrolls over, I'm going to, just after this is done, you can see that there's sales reps and owners and managers and customers and suppliers and buyers and reps and people in operations, warehouse employees, field technicians, contractors, lab technicians, production, marketing, and accountants that all might need access to information or being able to update or enter information. So an example of that would be a purchase request where somebody on the shop floor enters a purchase request. Then the buyer needs to decide which suppliers they want that purchase request to go to, and then the suppliers need to update the pricing and get it back to the buyer, and then the buyer needs to approve that, and then finally create a purchase order in Business One. We can automate that whole process using Versago. So I talked about cow paths, so now I'm just going to show you some swim lanes. And the example that I'm going to show you today is how we can relieve some bottlenecks. But this example is how a customer typically would interact with SAP Business One, where you would have a customer that would enter an order, sales would receive that order, print that order out, operations would pick it, the driver would grab that order, and then accounts receivable would create a delivery note and an invoice, and then they would take the incoming payment. So here's the flow of a typical order flow. So you can see that we went to paper, and then that paper gets turned in, and then we create our documents, and then those documents go back to the customer, and then the customer takes paper and processes a payment. And all of this costs time and money. So I'm going to show you how with Versago we can make this flow a lot easier, where the customer would enter the order, on a Versago page, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here's a sales manager view of information. So you can have dashboards, you can have reports and those types of things. And I'll come back to some of these types of forms and entry and reports in a little bit as I'm going through the drivers process. But here the customer just enters in their information, and it's very easy for them to, add information here. So if we wanted to add a printer, for example, it has a smart lookup that starts, narrowing things down so we can add. Maybe I want to add another item here. So this time it's a label. And you can see that it filters down very quickly. It's returning items that that customer can buy from Business One, and it's also returning the prices from Business One. So it's returning the prices that that customer is entitled to. And then at that point, the customer would simply just save the order and continue, get an order validation. And I'm going to show you now as a driver what this looks like, how we can view orders. We can send a note to the customer that we're on the way, and they can get an email of that. So that's the first step that I'm going to do as a driver. I'm going to log in. I'm going to log in as a driver, and you can see the driver has a calendar report here, and these are the deliveries that the driver needs to do to the customers today. And we can simply just click on it and get a little bit more information in regards to the address. And you can see here that I can email the customer a notification that we're on our way. So this enables us to interact with the customer in real time. So here's the customer's inbox, and this is just a real simple email that just says your order's on the way and the next stop is yours. So when the driver gets to the site, we need to look at that order, make sure that we have the right items, and then give it to the customer. And I'm going to have the customer sign off on it, and then we're going to create the delivery and invoice. So as the driver here, we simply click on a link here, and that gives us some more information. And this is a little sub-report that's filtered out just for that order. And it gives me the information of that order with more details underneath it of the item. And at this point, I can click on this, take it to the customer, get the customer to sign off. I can mark this order as delivered. We could take a photo and attach a photo there. We could type in comments, and all of this information we can either keep in the Versago database, or we can write it back to SAP Business One as an attachment or as a image, that's on a UDF. However you want to do that, we can do that. So at this point, when I click Save and Close, this is going to, in the back end, it's going to create the delivery document and convert that delivery document into an invoice. So just to show you what's happened, we looked at the order, we got the customer to sign off, and then now in SAP Business One, it's going to create the delivery and invoice. And we're going to send an email to the customer, and the customer can then review and pay invoices. We use authorize.net, or we can also interface into other payment gateways if you need. And then that's going to create the incoming payment in SAP Business One. So if we just go back to our environment here, you can see here that the customer got an email that says that the order is delivered. So here I'm going to log in as Jody. And I can simply just click on the hyperlink here, and it will open up that menu for her. directly into creating the payment report for her, showing her the invoices that she needs to pay. And depending on your settings here, you could allow Jody to change the amount that she's going to pay. And you can see as I select information here, it's going to total how much her check is going to be. And then she's going to click submit. And then she can choose how she's going to pay, if it's credit card or e-check. And based off of the credit card or e-check, you can see that we get a different screen behavior based off of that. So this process that I just showed you basically eliminates the interaction that sales and the accounts receivable department would typically have in this flow, where all they're really doing is doing tasks that our tool Bizweaver can do for the business. So how does that all work? Well, as I mentioned, Versago is a standalone web application. It's not a Business One add-on. And because of that, we can interface to any kind of backend. So whether it's a SQL or a HANA SAP Business One database, or another SQL database, maybe you have a manufacturing add-on that has a separate database that you need to grab information from, we can grab all of that information and pull it together. So it's going to take the data and we can pass that data over to the users in simple interfaces. So those are those reports that I showed you where you have the, the sales order information or the orders that need to go out today. So we do that through the ability of creating reports and forms, and those reports and forms allow the users to view and submit data back and forth. So as we grab that data in Versago, we have a tool called Bizweaver in the back end that takes care of all those transactions and writes back into the appropriate databases as things happen. So this all happens through the back end of us creating these reports, charts, dashboards, as I showed you earlier, and also the forms to get the data back into Versago. So all the data coming out is reports, charts, or dashboards, and all the data going back in is web forms. But we also have this tool down here that can just sit and listen to events that happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you the reports and charts and web forms and how easy it is to get this information built. And I say built, but the other thing that's really important to note is we provide you with an extensive library of forms and reports that you can use kind of out of the box for most of your typical interactions. And those typical interactions are, the customer portal, the vendor portal, the sales rep, adding an item, adding an activity to Business One, all of those types of forms and events we already have pre-configured for you, and all you have to do is choose to import them. So I'm going to log in as an admin person here now. And I'm going to show you, when we go into the administration console, you can see that we have the areas broken out into two areas. The first being reports and forms, and then the other area being the administration area where we can go in and administer users, we can import data, and those types of things. So here is Bizweaver, and I'll show you the flow that we did in Bizweaver, and here's the Versago admin console. So you can see here that we have reports, dashboards, and then we also have forms. So this is the getting information. So as an example here, here's the calendar report for the driver. So it's show me all the orders for delivery. And this work at Third Wave, we're a software solution partner, but we're also a VAR. And this work our junior consultants are doing. You don't need a developer to do this because it's just simple select statements that you write to get information. And as I mentioned, we give you a lot of this pre-canned information already. And then you choose to filter it down based off of a route or off of a warehouse, or however you want to filter this down. You can see that I'm filtering it by open documents just for this demo environment, but if you have multiple drivers, the next thing you do is you choose what data you want to show. And then you set up your calendar. And then the links, you could see that I have the link that sends the customer the email, and I have the link that takes the driver into the order. So that's how easy it is to build a report and to display that report in Business One. On the form side of things, it's very easy to go in and build forms because the concept's the same. You call data, we'll look at this production material capture as an example. We simply call data, and when we call that data, we then have it exposed here. That allows us to do drag and drop. And we can go in and we can add different types of form controls here, whether it's a title, a signature box, time and date pickers so that you can capture time, file attachments, drop-down lists, all of these different types of fields that you saw on the forms that the driver had. We can have them added to the forms on a simple drag and drop concept. So you can go in and you can edit rows, for example, and you can choose, how many rows how many columns you want in that row, and then you can choose the widths that you want of those, and you can see that it dynamically will adapt to the widths that you're allowed. So this is just very easy for you to, drag and drop and move things around based off of the information that you pulled. The other thing that we have is the concept of adding users, whether they're customers or vendors or drivers. And when we add those users, we assign roles and profiles, and this allows us to filter down the information automatically so that you don't have to worry about some vendor seeing other purchase orders that are for another vendor. It's inherently secured because we can use these roles and profiles to filter out information so that they only see information that pertains to their code. And as I mentioned, we have a very robust starting point for you. So it's not like this is just a blank platform. We give you all of the information to basically start with a portal application, but also that you have some of these standard forms already pre-built, and you can import them using the import tool, but you can also export them. So as I mentioned, if your junior consultant's doing the work on their their sandbox, they can simply export that, go over to the customer site and import it into the customer site. And it doesn't pull all the data, it just pulls the settings and the queries and all of those types of pieces of information. So this is the Versago backend admin console that allows you to build all of that data that I mentioned earlier, which is the reports, charts, dashboards, and forms. And then over here we have Bizweaver that takes care of all of the back-end processing. So Bizweaver, if I just open up the example that I just did for my mobile proof of delivery here, you can see that it grabs data and it listens. And then we've mapped that data back to SAP Business One. SAP Business One performs the update, which creates the delivery document and then the subsequent invoice, and then it ends, and then when it ends, it sends an email to the customer, and that email to the customer, you can see that we have nice HTML editors here that allow you to pull in all of the fields that are part of that Bizweaver process. So it's not just the information from, the sales order, for example. So you can see all of the information that has come through is available for me to drag and drop into the email settings. So that's how easy it is for you to have a flow. The other thing that Bizweaver is used for is updating and reading files and those types of things. So you can see here that we have an example where it just listens for a file, grabs a VB script, and then renames files and then ends a loop, for example. So this is where we have some of our customers that when they do a SAP AR/AP invoice, they want to take the goods receipt scan document and move it into a different folder because now it's a paid invoice. And instead of the user having to do that, we can have Bizweaver listening for that event to happen and then automatically moving files or renaming files, that it's posted or whatever it is. So over here, we have all of our different types of tools. So you can see that we can call web services like REST APIs. We can, do JSON script and we can, get information back that way. We can read files, we can write files. So this tool just allows you to map any kind of flow in a simple drag and drop concept. So it's very easy for you to use this platform to automate, whether it's postings back to SAP Business One, updates to a website, any type of information like that. So as Darren mentioned, this is a fast-moving meeting this morning. So there is a lot to this, but it is able to get up and started with this because of that pre-configured standard content that we give you. So it's a platform that's ready for you to use as a portal almost immediately, but you can see that you can also do all different types of setup with it. So just to kind of summarize, it's one platform that's configurable for any need. It scales across the business. The user training at the end user is very, very simple because it's just intuitive and it's basically replacing that paper that I mentioned at the beginning. And it's out of the box integrated with SAP Business One. So here's just a list of some of the different types of examples of where you could use Versago or Bizweaver. We actually use Versago and Bizweaver for our portal for our customers. So our customers creating tickets, downloading software, requesting licenses, all of that information we use Versago and Bizweaver ourselves internally for all of that. So if you're interested in becoming a partner, or if you are a partner and you've probably already been on our portal, but that's one of the first things that we do is we get you on our Versago portal so that you can keep track of information. So here's my contact information down below. Should you have any questions that don't get answered during today's webinar, please feel free to reach out to me. And Darren, that concludes my part of the presentation today. Thank you for your time and inviting me.
No problems at all, Tyson, and thank you very much. That was a great insight into the power and the flexibility of both Versago and Bizweaver there. I've put an invite out to the audience to type in any questions during the last 20 minutes or so. I think you've done a very good job because I've not had anybody actually raise their hand or put anything in yet. So we've probably answered any of the more obvious questions, but there is still an option for the audience today to type in any questions either through the questions input box or even the chat box. So we'll hang on for a couple more minutes. Just to reiterate, this is actually part of a regular schedule of webinars that Cloud for Partners runs in conjunction with the wider SSP community. And what I would like to say is that if you'd like to take a look at social media postings, whether that's Twitter or LinkedIn, or go to the Cloud for Partners website, you'll actually see further information about future events. I'm still not getting any questions on the dashboard at the moment, Tyson. So once again, I just wanted to thank you for today's input. I do appreciate it's very early where you are, so you're probably keen to get off and have a cup of coffee now. But once again, thank you very much, Tyson. Greatly appreciated. And as Tyson's already said, there's ability to contact Tyson directly after the webinar is concluded today. If you should lose Tyson's contact details, you're always welcome to approach myself at Cloud for Partners. So feel free to email Darren Crawley at mycloudforpartners.com, and I'll be delighted to feedback any questions or any interest relating to Versago or Bizweaver. And finally, just wanted to thank the delegates for today. Unfortunately, if anybody is in a position to have made today's session, please don't worry. We have all of our webinars on record, and we publish those on the dedicated Cloud for Partners YouTube channel. So if there are any colleagues out there that want to refer to today's session, certainly they're welcome to see the recording. And I'll wish you all a very good day wherever you are in the world, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.